The underground parking GA rage of the Virtu hotel smelled like cold concrete and expensive exhaust fumes. Julian Sterling walked with long, deliberate strides, his hand resting lightly on the small of Elena's back as he guided her, and Lily Tawa RD, a blacked-out SUV that looked like it belonged in a Melita convoy rather than a hotel parking lot. Elena's heels echoed Shah RPLY against the concrete. Her mind was still reeling, trying to process the shift that had happened in the span of 5 minutes. She had walked into that lounge as a powerful CEO negotiating a deal. She was walking out as a frightened mother being herded into a stranger's vehicle. "I don't understand why we can't just go to my penthouse," she said, her voice tight, struggling to regain some semblance of control. "I have a security system. I have a panic room. You have a security system that was installed by a company that went bankrupt 3 years ago." Julian interrupted, his voice flat. He opened the back door of the SUV and gestured for her to get in. "I checked your building's security protocols during our due diligence for the merger. Your panic room is accessible through a service corridor that any maintenance worker with a key CARD can enter. Your ALA RM system runs on outdated software that can be bypassed with a $200 device bought off the RK web." Elena froze, her hand gripping the door frame. "How do you know all of that?" "Because it's my job to know." Julian's eyes met hers, cold and unwavering. "And because I was planning to use that information to negotiate better terms for the security contract. Consider this a free consultation." Lily, still clutching her mother's hand, looked up at Julian with wide eyes. "Are you a spy?" she asked, her voice small but curious. That Julian's expression flickered, almost imperceptibly. "No," he said. "I'm just someone who pays attention." He helped Lily into the CAR, his movements careful and precise, as if she were made of glass. Elena watched him, noting the contrast between his cold demeanor and his gentle handling of her daughter. It was disorienting that the SUV pulled out of the GA rage and merged into the chaotic afternoon traffic of downtown. Julian sat in the front passenger seat, his phone pressed to his EAR, speaking in low, clipped sentences to someone on the other end. "No, I don't want a detail," he said. "I want a full intercept. Trace his phone, his vehicle, his credit cards. I want to know where he slept last night and what he had for breakfast. Call me when you have something." He hung up and turned to face Elena, his expression unreadable. "Moretti checked into a motel on the outskirts of the city 2 days ago. He's been circling your office and your daughter's school for the past 48 hours. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "Her school, he was watching her school. He was watching both of you," Julian said, his voice calm, but his eyes Shah RP. "The confrontation in the lounge wasn't impulsive. He knew you were there. He knew your daughter would be in the play array. He wanted to send a message." "What kind of message?" Elena asked, her voice rely above a whisper. Julian turned to look at her, his gaze heavy with meaning. "That he can get to you. That no matter how high you climb, there's always someone who can reach you from below. It's a classic intimidation tactic, and it usually means the perpetrator is planning something bigger." Lily, who had been quiet for the past few minutes, suddenly spoke up. "The man said Mommy stole his house." Elena's head snapped. "Tawa RD, her daughter." "What, Lily? What did he say exactly?" Lily frowned, trying to remember. He said Mommy took his home away and made his kids cry. He said she was a monster. And he said," she paused, her lower lip trembling. "He said if Mommy didn't give it back, he would take something from her too." The CAR fell silent. Elena's hands were shaking. She had known the property deal was contentious, but she had believed it was just business. She had believed the threats were empty words from a bitter man. She had been so wrong. Julian St read at her through the REA review mirror. "What property deal are we talking about?" Elena swallowed. "Ha Road, a commercial building on the west side. It was supposed to be redeveloped into a mixed-use complex. Moretti owned it, but he was in financial trouble. I bought it out from under him at a foreclosure auction. It was legal. It was fair." "Fair doesn't matter," Julian said flatly. "What matters is that you destroyed a man's livelihood, and he's looking for revenge. And he knows exactly where to strike to cause the most damage." He turned to face the front, his jaw tight. He knew this pattern. He had seen it a dozen times in his previous life. The threats, the surveillance, the escalation. It always root with words and ended with violence. "We're going to a safe house," he said. It's off the grid. No records, no registrations. You'll stay there until I can neutralize the threat. Elena shook her head, her pride reasserting itself. I can't just disap AR. I have a company to run. I have a BOA RD meeting tomorrow. Your company will survive a day without you. Julian interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. Your daughter might not survive a day if you walk back into that building. The words hit Elena like a slap. She looked down at Lily, who was leaning against her, exhausted and pale. The little girl's eyes were half closed, her breathing slow and even. She was so small, so fragile. Everything Elena had built, every deal she had made, every enemy she had created, it all meant nothing if she couldn't protect this one tiny person. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in a quiet residential neighborhood. It was small, BA furnished, with thick curtains drawn over every window. The only luxury was a state-of-the-art security system that Julian had installed himself. Elena stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the spa RC furniture. This is it. Julian walked to the kitchen, pulling out a bottle of water from the refrigerator. It's secure, he said. That's all that matters. There's food for 2 weeks, medical supplies, and a satellite phone in the bedroom. If anything happens, you use that phone to call me. Not the police, not your security team. Me. Elena crossed her arms, her defensive posture returning. And what are you going to do? Julian's eyes keened. I'm going to find more Eddie and make sure he understands the consequences of targeting my client. He set the water bottle down on the counter and walked toward the door. Elena followed him, a strange mix of gratitude and resentment churning in her chest. Julian, she called out, stopping him at the threshold. Thank you for what you did back there. For protecting Lily. Julian paused, his hand on the doorknob. He didn't turn around. I lost my own daughter, he said, his voice audible. Not to a kidnapper or a threat. I lost her because I chose my career over my family. My ex-wife took her and moved across the country. I see her twice a year if I'm lucky. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen this side of him, never imagined that the cold, ruthless businessman was crying such a heavy wound. I told myself it was for the best, Julian continued, his voice hardening. That I was protecting her by staying away, by keeping my enemies at arm's length. But the truth is, I was just SCA red. I didn't know how to be a father and a soldier at the same time. He turned to face her, and for the first time, she saw the exhaustion behind his eyes. When Lily grabbed my leg and asked me to protect you, he said, I saw her. I saw my own daughter. And I realized I've been running from that guilt for 8 years. I'm done running. Elena didn't know what to say. She had always seen him as a rival, a competitor, a man to be outmaneuvered. But now, in this cramped apartment, with the weight of the world pressing down on both of them, she saw him for what he truly was, a broken man trying to fix himself by saving someone else. Julian. She root. But he cut her off. Get some sleep, he said. Lock the door behind me. I'll be back in the morning. He stepped out of the apartment, the door clicking shut behind him. Elena heard the deadbolt slide into place, and then silence. She walked to the window, pulling back the curtain just a crack to watch his SUV pull away from the curb. He drove fast, to sap a ring into the night like a ghost. That Lily read at her side, rubbing her eyes. Is the hero gone? Elena smiled weakly, pulling her daughter close. He'll be back, sweet. He said he would. Lily nodded thoughtfully. He's sad, Mommy. I could tell. Elena looked down at her daughter, surprised by her perception. What do you mean? Lily looked up at her, her young face serious. His eyes like the ocean, she said. Pretty, but deep and cold. And really, really lonely. Elena felt her heart clench. She had been so focused on her own fears, her own pride, that she hadn't noticed the cracks in Julian's mirror. But Lily had seen it immediately. Children always saw what adults tried to hide. 2 hours later, Elena was lying in bed, SDA ring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Lily was curled up beside her, her small body warm and peaceful. The apartment was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Then she heard a soft click at the front door. Elena's body went rigid. She sat up slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. She strained her ears, listening for any sound, any sign of intrusion. Nothing, as she told herself it was her imagination. The stress, the fear, the exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. She lay back down, forcing herself to breathe slowly, to relax. Then she heard the floorboy creak, not from the hallway. From inside the apartment, Elena grabbed Lily's hand, shaking her awake. The little girl stirred, confused and groggy. "Mommy." "Shoo," Elena whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't make a sound." She reached for the bedside table, her fingers closing around the satellite phone Julian had left. She pressed the only button on it, holding it down for 3 seconds. The creaking footsteps were getting closer. Elena pulled Lily into her ARMS, backing up against the headboy road. She could see the shadow moving in the gap beneath the bedroom door. A dark shape sliding across the floor. The door handle turned. Elena's heart stopped. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The door swung open. And standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the faint light of the hallway, was a tall figure with a gun in his hand. "I told you." The figure rasped, stepping four-way road. "I told you I would take something you loved." Elena's blood ran cold. She recognized the voice. It was Moretti. He had found them. He had found them, and Julian wasn't here to protect them. Moretti raised the gun, aiming it at Elena. "You took everything from me," he hissed. "My home, my business, my dignity. Now I'm going to take everything from you." Lily screamed. Elena covered her daughter's mouth, shielding her body with her own. She waited for the bullet, the pain, the end. And then, in a blur of motion, the bedroom window shattered. Glass exploded. INWARD, and a dark figure crashed through the frame, landing between Elena and Moretti with a thundering impact. It was Julian. He was covered in cuts from the broken glass, his face a mask of cold fury. He hadn't come in through the front door. He had climbed the fire escape and waited. He had known. He had been watching all along. "Drop the weapon," Julian said, his voice low and dangerous. "Now." Moretti hesitated, his eyes rooting between Julian and Elena. He was cornered, trapped between a man who had clearly done this before and his desperate need for revenge. "You can't protect her forever," Moretti roulette. "One day, you'll slip up. And on that day, I'll." Julian moved faster than Elena could track. His ARM shot out, twisting Moretti's wrist with a sickening crunch. The gun clattered to the floor, and Moretti cried out in pain, collapsing to his knees. Julian was on him in an instant, pinning him to the ground with his knee. He pulled a pair of zip ties from his pocket, securing the man's hands behind his back. "Federal agents on their way," Julian said, his voice flat and emotionless. "You're going to disappear for a long, long time. And when you get out, you're going to remember this moment. You're going to remember that I had you dead to rights, and I let you live. That's a debt you'll never repay." He looked up at Elena, his eyes meeting hers through the darkness. They were wild, fierce, and full of something she couldn't quite name. But Lily, clinging to her mother's neck, whispered the words Elena couldn't bring herself to say. "I told you, Mommy," the little girl said, her voice trembling with awe. "I told you he was a hero." The federal agents came and went like a tide, sweeping Moretti out of the apartment and into a black van that had materialized from the shadows. They took statements, bagged evidence, and asked questions that Elena answered with a hollow voice. Through it all, Julian stood against the wall, his ARMS crossed, his face unreadable. A medic had bandaged his forearms where the shattered glass had cut deep, but he refused any further treatment. When the last agent closed the door behind him, the apartment fell into a deafening silence. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, Lily still clutched against her chest. The little girl had stopped crying, but she hadn't let go of her mother's shirt. Her small fingers twisted in the fabric like she was afraid Elena would disappear. Julian pushed off from the wall and walked to the kitchen. He filled a glass with water and brought it to Elena, pressing it into her hands. "Drink," he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle, a stark contrast to the violence she had just witnessed. Elena's hands trembled as she raised the glass to her lips. The water was cold and tasted metallic, but she drank anyway. When she was done, she looked up at Julian, her eyes red-rimmed but dried. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you know he would come here?" Julian pulled up a chair and sat across from her, his elbows resting on his knees. I didn't, he admitted. But I knew he was desperate, and desperate people make predictable mistakes. Moretti had been watching your penthouse and your office for days. When you vanished from both locations, he would have looked for the next logical place. He found the safe house. Elena frowned. But you said the safe house was off the grid. You said no one could find it. It was a trap, Julian said flatly. I left a trail. A small one, just enough for someone with Moretti's resources to follow. I wanted him to come here. I wanted him to make a move while I was watching. Elena Sta read at him, her mind struggling to process his words. You used us as bait. Julian didn't flinch. I used myself as bait. I was watching the building from the fire escape the entire time. If he had shown up while I was still inside, I would have intercepted him at the door. But he waited until I left, which is exactly what I expected. Elena set the glass down, her anger slowly replacing her fear. You could have told me. You could have warned me. And if I had warned you, you would have acted differently, Julian said. Moretti would have sensed something was wrong. He was paranoid, agitated. Any deviation from the pattern would have spooked him. The only way to force his hand was to make him believe he had the upper hand. Elena opened her mouth to a argue, but Lily stirred in her arms, letting out a small whimper. She looked down at her daughter, her anger deflating as quickly as it had risen. She had been so focused on her own pride, her own need to be in control, that she had forgotten the most important thing. Her daughter was alive. They were both alive. How long will he be locked up? She asked quietly. Julian leaned back in his chair. Long enough. Federal charges for breaking and entering, assault with a deadly weapon, and making terrorist threats. The judge will throw the book at him. He won't see daylight for at least a decade. Elena nodded slowly. A decade. It seemed like a long time, but she knew better than to think it was over. Moretti had been just one threat. There would be others. There were always others. She looked up at Julian, really looked at him this time. He was still dressed in his tailored suit, though it was rumpled now, stained with dirt and blood. His face was pale beneath the tan, and there were dark circles under his eyes that she hadn't noticed before. He looked exhausted. You said you have a daughter, Elena said softly. What's her name? Julian's expression flickered, just for a moment, before returning to its usual blank mask. Sophie, he said. She's 9. Does she live with your ex-wife? Julian nodded curtly. Karen took her to Seattle when Sophie was 2. She Rema right a few years ago. A good man. Stable. Safe. Elena heard the bitterness in his voice, buried beneath layers of indifference. Do you see her often? Julian looked away. I try, but it's complicated. Karen doesn't want me in their lives. She thinks I'm dangerous, that my past will catch up to Sophie one day. She's probably right. Elena thought about what Lily had said. Liar. His eyes like the ocean. Pretty, but deep and cold. And really, really lonely. She saw it now, the loneliness that he tried so hard to hide behind his walls. I think you're wrong, she said quietly. Julian looked at her, his brow furrowed. About what? About being dangerous, Elena said. I think you're the safest person I've ever met. You saved us tonight. You didn't have to. You could have just called the police and let them handle it. But you didn't. You came here, and you put yourself in danger to protect us. That's not what dangerous people do. Julian Sta read at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a ghost of a smile played at the corner of his lips. You don't know me, he said. You've known me for less than 24 hours. I know enough, Elena replied. I know you see ARRY guilt like a burden. I know you think you failed your daughter. And I know you're trying to make up for it by saving mine. Julian's smile faded. He stood up abruptly, walking to the window, and Sta rang out through the crack in the curtains. I'm not trying to make up for anything, he said, his voice clipped. I'm just doing my job. Bull, Elena said. Julian spun around, his eyes flashing. Excuse me, Elena stood, ruefully placing Lily on the bed and pulling the covers over her. She walked over to Julian, her gaze steady. You heard me. That's bull. You don't go climbing fire escapes for a client. You don't jump through windows for a contract. You did it because you felt something. And I want to know what. The tension in the room was palpable. Julian's jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. For a moment, Elena thought he would walk out, disappear into the night like he had done before. But instead, he took a step closer, his eyes boring into hers. "I felt fear," he said, his voice be a rely above a whisper. "Pure, unadulterated fear. When I saw that shadow move under the door, when I heard Lily scream, I felt like my heart was going to explode out of my chest." And do you want to know why Elena didn't answer? She couldn't. Her throat was too tight. "Because I saw Sophie," Julian said, his voice cracking. "I saw my daughter lying in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, because I wasn't there to protect her. I saw her face, pale and still, and I knew it was my fault." Elena's breath caught. "Julian, there was an incident," he continued, his voice raw. "When Sophie was 3, she was in a car accident with her mother. A drunk driver. Rin walked away with bruises, but Sophie," he stopped, swallowing road. "Sophie was in the ICU for 2 weeks. I was on the other side of the world on a mission. I didn't get the message until 3 days later. By the time I got home, she had already woken up. She was already asking for me, and I wasn't there." Elena felt TRS prick at her eyes. She reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "You can't blame yourself for that. You didn't know." "I should have known," Julian said, his voice hollow. "I should have been there. I should have been the one driving that car. I should have been the one protecting them. But I chose the mission. I always chose the mission. And I lost them." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with years of pain and regret. Elena didn't know what to say. There were no words that could fix this. There was no apology that could erase the past. But she could offer something else. That she stepped closer, wrapping her arms around him. He stiffened at first, his body going rigid with shock. Then, slowly, he relaxed, his arms coming up to hold her. He buried his face in her hair, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Elena held him, her hand rubbing circles on his back. She wasn't sure how long they stood there, but when he finally pulled away, his eyes were red, and his face was a mess of emotions. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice gruff. "I shouldn't have." "Don't," Elena said, cutting him off. "Don't apologize for feeling something. It's what makes you human." Julian wiped his face with the back of his hand, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "I've spent years trying not to feel anything. It was easier that way." "Did it work?" Elena asked. Julian met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw a glimmer of something soft beneath the ice. "No," he admitted. "It didn't work at all." They stood in the silence, the weight of the night settling around them. Outside, the first light of dawn was rooting to creep over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I should go," Julian said finally, stepping back. "I need to check in with the feds, make sure Moretti is processed properly. You and Lily stay here. I'll have someone bring you fresh clothes and food." Elena nodded, though she felt a pang of something she didn't want to name. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." Julian paused at the door, his hand on the knob. He looked back at her, his expression unreadable. "You're welcome," he said quietly. "And Elena, don't thank me. Just promise me you'll keep her safe." Elena walked over to the bed, looking down at Lily's sleeping face. The little girl was curled into a ball, her thumb in her mouth, a soft smile on her face. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. It was hard to believe that just hours ago, she had been screaming in terror. "I promise," Elena whispered. Julian nodded once, then slipped out the door, leaving Elena alone with her daughter and the strange, fragile hope that had bloomed in her chest. But as she laid down beside Lily, closing her eyes and letting exhaustion wash over her, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Moretti was gone, but the shadows of Julian's past were still lurking. And somewhere, in the depths of his cold, lonely heart, there was a wound that had never fully healed, that a wound that had just been reopened by a little girl's desperate plea. "Protect my mother." At the penthouse felt like a mausoleum. Elena stood in the center of her living room, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city she had conquered. The morning sun streamed through the glass, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Everything was exactly as she had left it. The pristine white couches, the abstract art on the walls, the crystal vase filled with fresh lilies that her housekeeper replaced every 3 days. It should have felt like coming home. Instead, it felt like stepping into a stranger's life. Lily was in her bedroom, tucked into her princess-themed canopy bed, still asleep after the ordeal of the previous night. Elena had CA ride her up the stairs herself, refusing to let the nanny help. She needed to feel the weight of her daughter in her arms, to confirm that she was real, that she was safe now. Alone in the silence of the penthouse, Elena found herself staring at her reflection in the window. She looked like a ghost, pale, hollow-eyed, her expensive silk blouse wrinkled and stained with dried TRS. This wasn't the Elena Vance who had graced the cover of Forbes. This was a woman who had come face to face with her own mortality and realized she had been living a lie. She had spent years building an empire, convinced that power and money were the ultimate forms of protection. She had believed that if she was rich enough, influential enough, untouchable enough, nothing could hurt her. She had been wrong. The buzzer at the front door interrupted her thoughts. Elena jumped, her heart racing, before she forced herself to breathe. It was 2EARLY for visitors. 2EARLY for anyone to know she was here, but she walked to the intercom, her hand trembling slightly as she pressed the button. "Who is it?" "Julian." The voice was calm, measured, familiar. Elena felt a rush of relief so intense it NEARLY buckled her knees. She pressed the button to unlock the private elevator and waited. When the elevator doors slid open, Julian stepped out, and Elena felt her breath catch. He had changed clothes, a dark charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His hair was still damp from a shower, and there was a fresh bandage visible on his forearm where the glass had cut him. He looked like he had slept about as much as she had. "I brought coffee," he said, holding up a paper cup. "And breakfast. The place on 5th makes a decent croissant." Elena read at him, a strange warmth spreading through her chest. "You didn't have to do that." "No," Julian agreed. "But I figured you wouldn't have eaten, and I needed to talk to you." He walked past her into the living room, setting the coffee and a paper bag on the marble kitchen island. Elena followed him, her feet silent on the cold floor. "Talk about what?" she asked. Julian turned to face her, his expression serious. "I've been thinking about what happened last night," he said. "About Moretti. About how he found you." Elena frowned. "You said it was a trap. You said you led him there." "I did," Julian said. "But that's not how he found the safe house. That's how he found the safe house after I fed him the information. But he knew where to look in the first place. He knew the city's protocol for relocating high-risk assets. He knew the exact neighborhood where the safe houses relocated." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. How would he know that? Julian's eyes were dark, unreadable. Because someone told him. The words hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Elena's mind raced, trying to process what he was saying. "That's impossible. The only people who knew about the safe house were you, me, and the federal agents." Julian shook his head. "There are others. The people who maintain the safe houses, the people who log the locations, the people who process the paperwork. Any one of them could have been compromised." Elena gripped the edge of the island, her knuckles white. "You're saying someone deliberately fed Moretti information? Someone who wanted him to find us?" "I'm saying," Julian said slowly, "that this was never just about a property dispute. Moretti was manipulated. Someone used him as a pawn." Elena's mind went back to the confrontation in the hotel lounge. Moretti had been so specific, so targeted. He hadn't just threatened her. He had threatened Lily. He had known exactly where to strike, who she demanded. "Who would want to hurt us?" Julian walked closer, his voice dropping low. "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. I've already got Davis working on the federal database, cross-referencing anyone who had access to the safe house logs. It's going to take some time." Elena felt a surge of frustration. She had built her entire career on being proactive, on anticipating threats and neutralizing them before they could do damage. But this was different. This wasn't a boa room or a negotiation table. This was a world she didn't understand, with rules she couldn't control. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Julian studied her for a moment, his gaze penetrating. "I need you to trust me," he said. "Completely. No secrets, no half-truths. If there's something in your past, something that could be connected to this, I need to know about it." Elena bristled at the implication. "I haven't done anything wrong. I've made enemies, sure. I'm a businesswoman. That's part of the job. But I've never done anything criminal, never crossed a line that could come back to haunt me." "Are you sure?" Julian pressed. "Think fully. Is there anyone who might hold a grudge beyond the usual business rivalry? Anyone you might have hurt more deeply than you realized? Elena wanted to say no. She wanted to be certain. But as she urged her memory, a face flickered in the back of her mind. A face she hadn't thought about in years. There was someone, she said slowly. A man named Richard Road, H.A. Rowe. He was a business partner of mine about a decade ago, back when I was still building Vance Media. We had a falling out. He accused me of stealing his ideas, of taking credit for his work. It was ugly. What happened? Julian asked. Elena swallowed. I sued him for defamation. I won. He lost everything. His reputation, his career, his savings. He moved to the West Coast, tried to start over, but I never followed up. I just moved on. Julian's expression was unreadable. And you think he might be connected to this? Elena shook her head. I don't know. It was so long ago. I assumed he had moved on too. Julian pulled out his phone, typing a quick message. I'll have Davis look into him, he said. In the meantime, I want to upgrade your security. Full systems overhaul. New cameras, new locks, new protocols. I want your team replaced with people I've personally vetted. Elena opened her mouth to object, but Julian held up a hand. This isn't negotiable, he said. The fact that someone with a grudge could get close enough to your daughter to scare her is unacceptable. We're going to fix that. Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to say she could handle this herself, that she didn't need a man to swoop in and save her. But the words died in her throat. Because the truth was, she didn't need him. She needed someone who knew this world, who could navigate its shadows and protect what mattered most. Fine, she said quietly. Do what you need to do. Julian nodded, a flicker of approval in his eyes. Good. I'll start with the penthouse. I'm going to need to inspect every room, every window, every door. I need to understand the vulnerabilities. Elena led him through the penthouse, watching as he moved with practiced efficiency. He checked the locks on the windows, examined the edges of the doors, even knelt down to inspect the gaps beneath the cabinetry. It was strange, seeing this cold, imposing man so focused on the minutiae of her home. But when they reached Lily's room, Julian paused at the door. He looked at the canopy bed, the stuffed animals, the pink fairy lights draped across the walls. His expression softened, just slightly. She's a good kid, he said quietly. Elena nodded. She's the best thing I've ever done. The only thing I've ever done that really matters. Julian turned to look at her, his eyes unreadable. It's not too late, he said. For you to have more. For you to find a balance. Elena shook her head. I don't think I know how. I've been so focused on building this empire that I forgot what it was for. I forgot why I root fighting so hard in the first place. To protect her, Julian said. You wanted to protect her. That's what this was always about. Elena looked at him, surprised by his insight. How did you know? Julian smiled, a sad, knowing smile. Because I did the same thing. I built my company, my reputation, my fortune, all to prove to K-Run that I was worthy, that I could provide, that I was more than just a soldier with a gun. And did it work? Elena asked. Julian's smile faded. No, he said. It never does. They stood in the doorway, a strange understanding passing between them. Two people who had built walls so high that they had forgotten how to let anyone in. We should talk about something else, Julian said finally, breaking the tension. Have you heard from your boa RD? They expecting you at the meeting today? Elena shook her head. I canceled it. Told them I had a family emergency. They weren't happy, but I don't see my daughter comes first. Julian nodded approvingly. Good. That's the right call. Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She picked it up, glancing at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. Meet me at the old factory on West Street, if you want to know the truth about Julian Sterling. Elena's blood ran cold. She read at the screen, her mind reeling. What truth? What could this possibly be about? Julian noticed her expression. What is it? Elena looked up at him, her heart racing. She had promised to trust him, to be honest. But something in the message made her hesitate. What if this was connected to whoever had leaked the safe house location? What if Julian was hiding something too? Nothing, she said quickly. Just spam. Wrong number. Julian studied her for a moment, his eyes narrowing. He didn't believe her. She could see it in his face. But he didn't push. Okay, he said, his voice flat. I'm going to finish the inspection. Stay in the penthouse until I'm done. He walked away, Giuseppe ring into the hallway, and Elena was left alone with her phone and a growing sense of dread. She read the message again, her thumb hovering over the reply button. She knew she should tell Julian. She knew she should trust him. But there was a voice in her head, small and insistent, that whispered a warning. Protect my mother. The words had come from Lily's mouth, but they could have been her own. She had spent years protecting herself, building walls so high that no one could get through. And now, faced with a threat she didn't understand, she was reverting to her old ways. She typed a single word into her phone. Where the reply came almost immediately, as if the sender had been waiting. West Street. 8 p.m. Come alone. Elena Sta read at the screen, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew it was a trap. She knew it was dangerous. But she also knew that if there was something about Julian Sterling that she didn't know, something that could put Lily at risk, she had to find out. As she slipped the phone into her pocket, her decision made that she would go to the factory. She would find out the truth. And she would do it alone. The West Street factory was a monument to urban decay. Once a thriving textile plant, it now stood abandoned, its windows bow-ried up and its brick walls covered in layers of faded graffiti. The parking lot was cracked and overgrown with weeds, and the only light came from a flickering street lamp at the corner of the block. Elena sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel. Sta ring at the hulking silhouette of the building. It was 10 minutes to 8. She had lied to Julian, told him she needed to run an errand, and driven across the city with her heart pounding in her chest. She knew it was stupid. She knew it was reckless. But the message had planted a seed of doubt, and that seed had grown into something she couldn't ignore. What if Julian was hiding something? What if the threat against her and Lily was connected to his past, to the life he had left behind? She couldn't afford to be blind to the danger. Not when her daughter's safety was at stake. She took a deep breath and stepped out of the car. The night air was so and damp, ring the faint smell of rust and decay. She walked toward the factory's main entrance, her heels clicking against the broken pavement. The door was propped open with a rusted metal bar. Elena pushed it aside and stepped into the darkness. The interior was cavernous, filled with the skeletal remains of old machinery. The ceiling was high, lost in shadows, and the only light came from a single bulb hanging from a wire in the center of the room. Beneath it stood a figure, draped and shadowed. Close the door, the figure said. A woman's voice, low, measured, with a hint of bitterness. Elena hesitated, then pushed the door shut behind her. The sound echoed through the empty space. Who are you? She demanded. What do you want? The figure stepped forward into the light, and Elena felt her breath catch. The woman was in her late 40s, with sharp features and graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a simple black dress, and her eyes were cold, calculating. There was something familiar about her face, something Elena couldn't quite place. You don't recognize me, the woman said. It wasn't a question. Elena studied her, searching her memory. Then, slowly, the pieces clicked into place. K.A. Wren, she breathed. K.A. Wren Sterling. K.A. Wren smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. So you do remember. I thought Julian might have mentioned me. Elena's mind was racing. K.A. Wren Sterling. Julian's ex-wife. The woman who had taken their daughter and Giuseppe Red into the Pacific Northwest. What was she doing here? What are you doing in the city? Elena asked, her voice cautious. Why did you want to meet me? K.A. Wren walked closer, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. I came to warn you, she said. You're making a mistake, getting involved with Julian. He's not who you think he is. Elena's heart tightened. What are you talking about? K.A. Wren stopped a few feet away, her eyes boring into Elena's. He told you about Sophie, didn't he? About the accident, about how he wasn't there? Elena nodded slowly. Yes, he told me. K.A. Wren laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Did he tell you the rest? Did he tell you that it was his fault, that he had enemies even then? People who targeted his family because of the work he did? Elena felt a chill run down her spine. He said he didn't know about the accident until later. He said he was on a mission. He was on a mission, K.A. Wren said. A mission that he chose over his family. But that's not the whole story. The crash wasn't an accident. It was a warning. Someone tried to kill us, Elena. Someone who wanted to send a message to Julian. Elena's blood ran cold. What are you saying? K.A. Wren stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I'm saying that Julian's past is catching up with him. And if you stay close to him, it will catch up with you too. Last night, that wasn't about your business dealings. That was about Julian. Moretti was just a pawn. Someone is using him to get to Julian, and they're using you as the bait. Elena shook her head, her mind reeling. That doesn't make sense. How would someone like Moretti be connected to Julian's past? Because he was approached, Karen said. I don't know who, but I know it happened. I have sources, people who keep me informed. Julian's enemies never really went away. They just went underground. Elena felt a surge of anger. And you think I'm just going to take your word for it? You're his ex-wife. You have every reason to want to sabotage his life. Karen's expression hardened. I have every reason to want to protect my daughter. Sophie is 9 years old, Elena. She's already been through so much. The last thing I need is for her father to drag her into another war, because he can't stop fighting. Elena sta read at her, caught between disbelief and fear. Part of her wanted to dismiss Karen's words as jealousy, as the bitter rant of a scorned woman. But another part of her, the part that had been shaken by the events of the past 24 hours, couldn't ignore the possibility that there was truth in what she was saying. How do I know you're telling me the truth? Elena asked. Karen reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She handed it to Elena. Because I have proof. Elena unfolded the paper, her eyes scanning the contents. It was a police report, dated 8 years ago. The details were chilling. The car accident that had nearly killed Sophie and Karen had been investigated as a potential attempted murder. The driver had been a former associate of one of Julian's targets, a man who had been released from prison a month before the crash. The driver was never convicted, Karen said. He read before the trial. The case went cold. Elena looked up, her hands trembling. Why didn't Julian tell me this? Karen's smile was sad, almost pitying. Because Julian doesn't tell anyone the whole truth. He keeps secrets to protect himself, not the people he claims to see about. He did it to me, and he'll do it to you. Elena folded the paper and slipped it into her pocket. Her mind was spinning, trying to process everything Karen had told her. If it was true, it changed everything. Julian wasn't just a protective ex-agent. He was a man with enemies who would stop at nothing to destroy him. And by getting close to him, she and Lily had become targets. Thank you for telling me this, Elena said, her voice quiet. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I appreciate the warning. Karen nodded. I just want you to understand what you're getting into. Julian may seem like a hero, but heroes attract villains. And villains don't see a who gets hurt in the crossfire. She turned and walked toward a side door, her footsteps fading into the darkness. Elena stood alone in the factory, the police report burning a hole in her pocket. She had come here looking for answers. Instead, she had found more questions. When she got back to the penthouse, Julian was waiting for her. He was standing by the windows, his back to her. Sta rang out at the city lights. He didn't turn around when she entered. Where have you been? He asked. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. Elena set her purse down on the kitchen island. I told you. I had an errand. Julian turned to face her. His eyes were dark, unreadable. You've been gone for 2 hours. You told me you were going to the pharmacy. The pharmacy is 3 blocks away. Elena felt a flash of irritation. Are you tracking me now? Someone has to, Julian said, his voice rising slightly. You're not taking this seriously, Elena. Someone tried to kill you and your daughter last night, and you're sneaking around the city like it's a casual Tuesday. Elena's anger fla red. I'm not sneaking around. I had something I needed to do. You don't own me, Julian. You don't get to control my every move. I'm not trying to control you. Julian shot back. I'm trying to keep you alive. There's a difference. Elena sta read at him, her heart pounding. She wanted to tell him about Karen, about the police report, about her doubts. But she was afraid. Afraid that if she pushed him away, she would lose the only person who could protect her. And yet, if Karen was right, Julian was also the one putting her in danger. I'm tired, Elena said finally, her voice soft. It's been a long day. I'm going to bed. Julian studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Get some rest. I'll be on the couch if you need anything. Elena walked to her bedroom, her steps heavy. She climbed into bed, pulling the covers up to her chin, and STA read at the ceiling. She didn't sleep for a long time, but the next morning, Elena woke to find a text message on her phone. It was from Julian's private investigator, Davis. Check your email. Elena sat up, her heart pounding. She opened her email and found a message from Davis with a video attachment. She clicked on it, and the screen filled with grainy footage from a security camera that the timestamp showed the day before yesterday, the morning of the incident at the hotel. The video showed Moretti walking through the lobby, his face twisted with anger. He was talking to someone on his phone, his gestures wild and frantic. But it wasn't the footage of Moretti that made Elena's blood run cold. It was the figure in the background, standing by the concierge desk, watching Moretti with a calm, calculating expression that a woman with sharp features and graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. Karen Sterling, Elena Este read at the screen, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. Karen had been at the hotel. Karen had been there before the confrontation. Karen had told her to meet her at the factory, had warned her about Julian, had presented herself as a concerned mother trying to protect her child. But the video told a different story, that Karen wasn't just a worried ex-wife. Karen was connected to this dot, and Elena had walked right into her trap. As she grabbed her phone, her fingers shaking as she typed a frantic message to Julian, "I need to talk to you now." She hit send and waited, her heart pounding in her chest. The seconds stretched into minutes. And then she heard a sound from the living room, a soft click at the front door. Elena's breath caught. She crept out of bed, her feet silent on the cold floor. She opened the bedroom door just a crack and peered out. Julian was standing in the middle of the living room, his back to her. And in front of him, with her arms crossed and a cold smile on her face, was Karen. "Hello, Julian," Karen said, her voice dripping with venom. "It's been a long time." Elena's hand froze on the doorframe. She could see Julian's shoulders tense, a subtle shift that she had read to read as danger. His voice came out flat, controlled, but she caught the tremor beneath it. "Karen, this is unexpected." Karen laughed, a brittle sound that bounced off the marble floors. "Is it? I thought you'd be expecting me. You always said I was predictable." Julian didn't move. His body was a coiled spring, ready to strike. "You're not supposed to be here. The restraining order is still active." "The restraining order is a piece of paper," Karen said, stepping closer. "It doesn't mean anything when there's something important at stake." Elena pushed the door open fully and stepped into the living room. Both Julian and Karen turned to look at her. Julian's expression flickered with something, surprise, maybe worry. Karen's smile widened. "Ah, Elena. Good. You're awake. I was hoping we could have a little chat. The three of us." Elena's eyes root between them. Her voice was steady, but her heart was pounding. "You lied to me. You said you came to warn me. But you were at the hotel. You were watching Moretti." Karen's smile didn't falter. "I was watching Moretti because I was trying to protect my daughter. The same way I'm trying to protect yours." Julian stepped between them, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "What are you talking about? What did you tell her?" "I told her the truth," Karen said. "Something you're not very good at." The accusation hung in the air, heavy and bitter. Elena watched Julian's face, searching for any sign of deception. His jaw was tight, his fists clenched at his sides. "Karen, I don't know what game you're playing," Julian said, "but it stops now. You need to leave." "I'm not playing a game," Karen shot back. "I'm trying to save our daughter." "Your daughter? The one you abandoned? The one who still asks about you every single night?" Elena felt a sharp pain in her chest. She had thought she understood Julian's pain, the guilt he ride. But seeing him face to face with the woman he had hurt, he wringed the raw bitterness in Karen's voice. It was like watching a wound being ripped open. "What does Sophie have to do with this?" Elena asked. Her voice quiet, but firm. Karen turned to her, her eyes burning. "Everything. Don't you see Julian's enemies, recircling? They want to hurt him, and they don't see who they hurt in the process. They already tried to kill me and Sophie once. Now they're using you and your daughter to send a message." Julian's face went pale. "That's not true. Moretti was after you, not me." "Was he?" Karen pulled out her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. "I've been investigating this for months, Julian. I've been tracking the people who've been watching you, following you, digging into your life. Moretti was just the first move. There are others. She turned the phone tower RD him, showing a series of photographs. Surveillance shots of Julian's office, his home, his CAR, grainy images of men in RK suits, their faces obscured. I found these on a burner phone that was left in a rental NEA or your safe house, Ka Rin said. The same night Moretti broke in. Elena's blood ran cold. She walked closer, peering at the images. The faces were indistinct, but the intent was clear. Someone was watching Julian. Someone had been watching for a long time. Who are they? Elena asked. Karen shook her head. I don't know, but they're professionals. Former Melita maybe. Or intelligence. The kind of people Julian used to work with. Julian Estier read at the photographs, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he reached out and took the phone from Ka Ren's hand. Where did you get this? He asked. His voice Relia whispered. One of my contacts picked it up, Ka Ren said. A former analyst who owed me a favor. He said the files were encrypted, but he managed to crack them. There are more. Photos of your old missions, your targets, your operations. Someone has been compiling a dossier on you for YRS. Elena watched Julian's face, watching the color drain from it. She had never seen him look like this, vulnerable, shaken. It was as if the walls he had built around himself were crumbling. Whoever they are, Julian said slowly. They're not just targeting me. They're targeting everyone I've ever worked with. Everyone I've ever read about. Karen nodded. That's why I came here. I thought if I could RN Elena, if I could make her see the danger, she might walk away. She might take her daughter and disape, or before it's too late. Elena felt a flash of anger. You don't get to decide what I do. You don't get to manipulate me into being SCA red. I'm not trying to manipulate you, Karen said, her voice softening. I'm trying to save you. I know what it's like to be caught in Julian's orbit. I know what it's like to be a target. And I know the cost. She looked at Julian, her eyes brimming with TRS. I almost lost Sophie because of you. I almost lost everything. And I'll be damned if I let another mother go through that. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elena could hear her own breathing, fast and shallow. She could see Julian's hands trembling, his knuckles white. Sophie is safe, Julian said finally. You took her away from me. You made sure she was safe. I made sure she was away from you, Karen corrected. There's a difference. But even that might not be enough. They know about her, Julian. They know where she goes to school, where she plays, where she sleeps. They've been watching her too. Julian's face contorted with pain. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have done exactly what you're doing now, Karen said. You would have charged in, guns blazing, and made everything worse. You don't know how to be CA refill, Julian. You never did. Elena stepped forward RD, placing herself between them. Enough. Both of you. They both turned to look at her, surprised by the authority in her voice. Whatever happened between you, whatever mistakes were made, we need to focus on the present, Elena said. Someone is threatening my daughter. They're threatening all of us. We need to work together to figure out who they are and stop them. Karen shook her head. You don't understand. Julian's enemies don't just stop. They escalate. They keep coming until they've destroyed everything. Then we destroy them first, Elena said, her voice cold. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to hide. I'm going to fight. Karen Estier read at her, a flicker of respect in her eyes. You really are like him. Aren't you? Elena bristled. I'm nothing like him. You're exactly like him, Karen said. Stubborn, proud, reckless. You think you can win by sheer force of will. But some battles can't be won. Some battles can only be survived. Elena opened her mouth to respond, but Julian cut her off. Karen, I need to ask you something, he said. And I need you to be honest with me. Karen's expression hardened. What? Did you set up Moretti? Did you feed him information about the safe house? The question hung in the air, sharp and accusing. Karen's face went pale, her eyes widening. How to you? She whispered. How to you accuse me of something like that? You were at the hotel, Julian pressed. You were watching him. You had access to the same information he did. And you have every reason to want to see me suffer. Karen laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You think I would do that to an innocent child? You think I would risk Lily's life to get back at you? I don't know what you're capable of anymore, Julian said. I thought I knew you. I thought I knew the woman I'm alright. But you've changed. We've both changed. Karen stepped closer, her voice trembling with rage. I would never hurt a child. I would never hurt anyone who wasn't directly responsible for what happened to my family. But you. She pointed a shaking finger at Julian. You are irresponsible. You brought this into our lives. You made us targets. And instead of protecting us, you ran away. I was trying to protect you, Julian said, his voice cracking. I was trying to keep you safe. You failed, Karen spat. You failed us. And now you're failing her. She gestured at Elena, and the accusation was so so piercing, that Elena felt it like a physical blow. Julian opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. He looked defeated, broken, the weight of of guilt pressing down on him. Elena stepped forward, her voice steady. Karen, I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate the warning. But I need you to leave now. Karen read at her, her expression unreadable. You're making a mistake. Maybe, Elena said. But it's my mistake to make. And if Julian's enemies coming, I want to face them with him. Karen shook her head slowly, a sad smile on her lips. You're a fool, just like I was. She turned and walked toward the door, pausing at the threshold. I'll be in touch. When everything goes wrong, I'll be there to pick up the pieces. The door slammed behind her, and the apartment fell silent. Elena stood in the middle of the room, her heart pounding. She could feel Julian's gaze on her, heavy and sea-urching. Why did you do that? He asked quietly. Why did you defend me? Elena turned to face him, her expression unreadable. Because I believe you. And because if we're going to figure out who's behind this, we need to trust each other. Julian read at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and guilt. I don't deserve your trust. Maybe not, Elena said. But you have it anyway. She walked toward him, stopping just inches away. She could see the tension in his jaw, the fear in his eyes. Whatever happens next, she said, we face it together. Julian reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. His touch was gentle, almost reverent. I won't let anything happen to you, he said. Or Lily. I promise. Elena leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something other than fear but even as she did, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a warning. You've been burned before. You've been betrayed. Don't let your guard down. She pushed the voice aside. Choosing to trust him, it was a choice she might come to regret. The elevator doors slid shut behind Karen, and the silence she left behind was heavier than any noise. Julian's hand was still on Elena's cheek, but she pulled away, her practical mind reasserting itself. We need to move, she said, her voice clipped. If Karen was right about the surveillance, about them knowing where Lily is, we can't stay here. Julian nodded slowly, dropping his hand. I have another safe house. A better one. Completely off the grid. No paper trail, no connections to me or my company. But it means leaving the city. It means disappearing for a while. Then we disappear, Elena said without hesitation. I'll call the nanny, have her pack Lily's things. I'll tell the board I'm taking an extended leave. We'll figure out the rest later. Julian studied her, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. You're taking this better than most people would. I'm a CEO, Elena said, a ghost of a smile on her lips. I'm used to making decisions under pressure, and I'm used to protecting what's mine. She turned to walk toward Lily's room, but Julian's voice stopped her. Elena. She looked back at him. I need to tell you something, he said. Something I should have told you before. About Karen. About what happened between us. Elena crossed her arms, her expression right. I'm listening. Julian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of uncertainty. Karen wasn't wrong about everything. I did make mistakes. I chose the mission over my family more times than I can count. But she left out one detail. The reason the restraining order is still active. Elena waited. She tried to take Sophie, Julian said, his voice low. Not just move her across the country. She tried to have me declare an unfit father. She hired a lawyer, filed a motion, fabricated evidence. She wanted to cut me out of Sophie's life completely. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Why? Because she was afraid, Julian said. Not just of my enemies, but of me. She thought I was becoming too dangerous, too unstable. And maybe she was right. I was a different person back then. Angry, reckless, consumed by the mission. I wasn't fit to be a father. But you are now, Elena said quietly. Julian shook his head. I don't know. I want to be. But I don't know if I can. I've spent so long pushing people away that I've forgotten how to let them in. Elena stepped closer, her voice softening. You let me in. Last night, when you told me about Sophie, about the accident. You let me see the real you. Julian met her eyes, and there was something raw and vulnerable in his gaze. That's what SCA residential me. I've never let anyone see that before. Not even KA Ren. And now I'm afraid that if I let myself see a too much, I'll lose everything again. You won't, Elena said firmly. Because I'm not going anywhere. And neither is Lily. She reached out and took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. He looked down at their joined hands, his expression unreadable. I don't deserve this, he said. I don't deserve your trust. Stop saying that, Elena said. You deserve a second chance. You deserve to be happy. And you deserve to have someone who believes in you. Julian looked up at her, and for a moment, the cold, wide mask slipped entirely. He looked like a man who had been drowning for years and had finally been thrown a lifeline. Thank you, he whispered before Elena could respond. A sound from the hallway made them both freeze. It was soft, almost imperceptible, the faint creak of a floorboy road. Julian's expression shifted instantly, the vulnerability replaced by cold, sharp alertness. He released Elena's hand and moved toward the hallway, his body tense and ready. Stay here, he whispered. Elena's heart pounded as she watched him disappear round the corner. The seconds stretched into an eternity. And then she heard a voice. A child's voice. Mommy. Elena's breath caught. It was Lily. She rushed toward the hallway, her heart in her throat. Lily was standing at the end of the hall, rubbing her eyes, her stuffed bunny clutched to her chest. She looked confused and sleepy. What's happening? She asked. Why is everyone yelling? Elena knelt down, pulling her daughter into her arms. It's okay, baby. Everything's fine. Mommy just had a visitor. Lily looked past her, her eyes landing on Julian. Is the hero staying? Elena smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. He's going to take us somewhere safe. Somewhere we can be together. Lily nodded solemnly. Okay. Can I bring Mr. Bunnies? Of course, Elena said. You can bring all your stuffies. We're going on a little adventure. Lily's face brightened. The fear are fading from her eyes. Like a vacation, exactly like a vacation, Julian said, stepping closer. He knelt down to Lily's level, his voice soft. But it's a secret vacation. We can't tell anyone where we're going. Can you keep a secret? Lily nodded vigorously. I'm good at secrets. I never told Mommy about the sea I ate before dinner. Elena laughed, a genuine, relieved laugh. I knew about the sea sweetie. The crumbs were all over your face. Lily giggled, the tension in the room dissipating. Julian looked at Elena, a hint of warmth in his cold eyes. We leave in an hour. The safe house was a cabin in the mountains, nestled in a valley so remote that it didn't appear on any map. The drive had taken 5 hours, winding through narrow roads that climbed higher and higher into the wilderness. By the time they arrived, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Lily had fallen asleep in the back seat, her head resting against her stuffed bunny. Elena ride her inside, her arms aching but her heart full. The cabin was rustic but comfortable, with a stone fireplace, worn wooden furniture, and a view of the forest that stretched for miles. Julian had already route to fire, the flames casting warm shadows across the walls. He watched as Elena laid Lily on the bed in the small bedroom, tucking the covers around her. She's a good kid, he said quietly. Elena turned to look at him, her eyes soft. She's the best thing I've ever done. They stood in the doorway, watching Lily sleep. The silence was comfortable, intimate. Thank you, Elena said, for bringing us here, for keeping us safe. Julian shook his head. You don't have to keep thanking me. I told you, I'm just doing my job. This isn't your job, Elena said. This is something more. You know it, and I know it. Julian looked at her, his eyes unreadable. What do you want from me, Elena? Elena stepped closer, her voice rely above a whisper. I don't want anything. I just want you to stop pretending. Stop pretending you don't see stop pretending this doesn't mean something. Julian's breath caught. He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. Gentle and reverent. It means everything, he said. That's what SCA residential me. Elena leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. I'm SCA red too. But I'd rather be SCA red with you than safe alone. Julian leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. They stood there, breathing the same air, the fire crackling softly in the background. I don't deserve you, he whispered. You keep saying that, Elena murmured. And I keep not listening. Julian laughed, a soft, surprised sound. And then he kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, as if he was afraid she would pull away. But she didn't. She leaned into him, her hands gripping his shoulders, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing heavily. Julian rested his forehead against hers, his eyes closed. I've wanted to do that since the moment you walked into the lounge, he admitted. Elena smiled. You have a funny way of showing it. I'm not good at this, Julian said. I'm not good at feelings, or vulnerability, or any of it. But I want to try. For you. For Lily. I want to try. Elena reached up, her fingers brushing through his hair. That's all I ask. Just try. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, the fire casting its warm glow around them. For the first time in years, both of them felt something they had thought was lost forever. Hope. But even as they held each other, a phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Julian's phone. He pulled away, frowning as he checked the screen. His face went pale. What is it? Elena asked. Julian looked up at her, his eyes to RK with FIA. They found us. The phone screen glowed in Julian's hand, casting hot RSH shadows across his face. Elena watched the color drain from his skin, watched his jaw tighten into a line of cold steel. Who is it? She asked, her voice steady despite the FIA clawing at her chest. Julian didn't answer immediately. His thumb scrolled through the message, his eyes moving rapidly across the screen. When he finally looked up, his expression was grim. It's Davis. He's been tracking the encrypted signals from my old contacts. Someone pinged a location beacon NEA or the cabin's perimeter. It's not a coincidence. Elena felt her stomach drop. How did they find us? You said this place was off the grid. It is. Julian's voice was flat, controlled, which means someone on the inside fed them the location. Someone who knew about the cabin. Elena's mind raced, running through the possibilities. She had told no one. The nanny didn't know where they were going. The BOA RD had been given a vague excuse about a family emergency. There was no paper trail, no digital footprint. Ren, she said, the name escaping her lips like a curse. Julian shook his head slowly. I don't think so. She's angry, but she's not stupid. She wouldn't risk Sophie by drawing attention to herself. Then Julian's eyes met hers, and she saw something she hadn't seen before. FIA. Not for himself, but for her. For Lily. I don't know, he admitted. But we don't have time to figure it out. They're close. We need to move. He grabbed a duffel bag from the closet, stuffing it with supplies, food, water, medical kits, ammunition for the weapons he had stashed in a hidden compartment under the floorboy. RDS. Elena watched him work, her mind still reeling. What about Lily? She asked. She's asleep. I can't wake her up and tell her we're running again. You'll have to, Julian said, his voice gentle but firm. I'll carry her. You grab her bag. We leave in 5 minutes. Elena nodded, her legs moving on autopilot as she walked to the bedroom. She looked down at her daughter, curled up in the cozy bed, her face peaceful in the firelight. She felt a pang of guilt. So Shah RP at NEARLY brought her to her knees. She had promised to protect this child. She had promised to keep her safe. And now, she was dragging her into the wilderness, running from threats she didn't fully understand. But running was better than staying. Staying meant death. She reached down, shaking Lily gently. Sweet ART, wake up. Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. Mommy, her voice was thick with sleep. Is it morning? No, baby, Elena said, forcing a smile. We're going on another adventure. Remember the secret vacation? Lily nodded slowly, her brow furrowing. But I was sleeping. I don't want to go on an adventure. I want to stay here. I know, Elena said, her voice cracking. But we have to go. The hero said so. And he's really SMART, remember? Lily's eyes widened, and she sat up, suddenly alert. Is it the bad men again? Elena's RT broke. How did her daughter already know about bad men? How did she already understand that the world was a dangerous place? Yes, Elena admitted. But the hero is going to protect us. He's going to keep us safe. Lily nodded, her small face serious. Okay, I'll be brave. Elena pulled her into a tight hug, burying her face in her daughter's messy hair. That's my girl. They were out of the cabin in 4 minutes. Julie in California ride Lily, wrapped in a thick blanket, while Elena followed with the duffel bag and the emergency supplies. The night air was cold and Shah RP, biting at their faces as they made their way through the trees. Julian moved with practiced efficiency, his steps silent on the pine needles. He kept his head low, his eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. There's a vehicle hidden about a mile east, he whispered. We'll take that and head for the rendezvous point. Davis will have a team waiting. Elena nodded, her heart pounding in her ears. She could hear the distant sound of engines, growing closer. They were coming. They moved faster, weaving through the trees, the moonlight casting silver shadows across the forest floor. Lily was quiet, her small arms wrapped around Julian's neck, her eyes wide and watchful. And then the engine stopped. Julian froze, holding up a hand. Elena stopped beside him, her breath held in her chest. The silence was absolute. No birds, no insects, no rustle of leaves. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Stay behind me, Julian whispered, his voice barely audible. He lowered Lily to the ground, placing her behind a thick oak tree. Elena crouched beside her, pulling her daughter close. Julian moved forward, his body low and fluid. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a sleek black pistol. Elena had never seen him draw a weapon before. It was terrifying and oddly reassuring at the same time. Then the night exploded into chaos. A figure burst from the shadows, lunging at Julian with a knife. Julian sidestepped, his ARM coming up to block the strike. The blade sliced through his sleeve, drawing a thin line of blood, but he didn't flinch. He grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisting it at a brutal angle. There was a sickening crack, and the knife clattered to the ground. 2 more figures emerged from the darkness, advancing on Julian with lethal intent. He dispatched the first with a blow to the throat, sending him crumpling to the ground. The second managed to land a punch to his ribs, but Julian retaliated with a vicious elbow to the jaw. Elena watched, frozen in place, her daughter's small hand gripping hers. It was like watching a dance, cold, efficient, deadly. Julian moved like he was born for this, every motion precise and powerful. But there were more. A third, a fourth, emerging from the shadows like wraiths. Julian was outnumbered, and he was rooting to slow. Elena's mind snapped into focus. She couldn't just watch. She couldn't just hide. She looked around, her eyes landing on a thick fallen branch. She grabbed it, hefting its weight in her hands. It was heavy, but it would do. Stay here, Lily, she whispered. Don't move. Don't make a sound. Lily nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Elena crept forward, her heart pounding. One of the attackers was circling behind Julian, preparing to strike. He didn't see him. He was too focused on the 2 in front of him. Elena swung the branch with all her strength, catching the man across the back of the head. He went down instantly, crumpling to the ground in a heap. Julian spun around, his eyes widening with surprise. Elena, get back. But she was already swinging again, driving the branch into the side of another attacker's head. He staggered, giving Julian the opening he needed to deliver the finishing blow. When it was over, 4 men lay unconscious on the forest floor. Julian stood in the middle of them, his chest heaving, his eyes wild. Elena dropped the branch, her hands shaking. She had never hit anyone in her life. She had never even thrown a punch. But she had just taken down 2 armed men with a piece of wood. Are you okay? Julian asked, rushing to her side. His hands were on her face, checking for injuries. I'm fine, she said, her voice trembling. I'm fine. What about you? You're bleeding. Julian looked down at his ARM, where the knife had sliced through his sleeve. It's just a scratch. We need to move. There will be more. They gathered Lily and ran, crashing through the underbrush, not stopping until they reached the secondary vehicle. It was an old Jeep, battered and rusted, but it had a full tank of gas and keys hidden in the wheel well. Julian drove, his foot pressed to the floor, the engine ROA ring as they tore down the mountain roads. Elena sat in the passenger seat, Lily pressed between them, her small body trembling. Where are we going? Elena asked. Julian's jaw was tight. I don't know. Somewhere they can't find us. They drove for hours, the landscape shifting from forest to desert to open plains. The sun rose, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Lily fell asleep again, exhausted by the night's events. Elena read out the window, her mind a whirlwind of fear, and confusion. Who were these people? Why were they after Julian, and how had they found the cabin? I think I know who's behind this, Julian said suddenly. Breaking the silence, Elena turned to look at him. Who? His name is Dmitry Volkov. He was a target of mine, years ago, when I was still in the agency. I dismantled his operation, put him in prison. He got out 2 years ago, and he's been rebuilding ever since. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. You think he's the one behind the surveillance, the attacks? Julian nodded. He's organized, methodical, and he has the resources to pull this off. Moretti was a pawn, just like K.A. Rins said. Volkov is the one pulling the strings. Elena's mind raced. What does he want? Revenge, revenge, Julian said, his voice hollow. And to send a message. He wants to prove that no one is safe. Not me, not my family, not anyone I see about. Elena looked at Lily, her beautiful, innocent daughter. She had thought the world was dangerous, but she had never imagined it was this dangerous. We need to stop him, she said. We need to end this. Julian looked at her, his eyes filled with pain. I know, but I don't know how. Volkov has been planning this for years. He's always one step ahead. Elena reached out, her hand resting on his arm. Then we'll figure it out. Together. Julian's hand covered hers, his grip warm and reassuring. Together, he repeated. The jeep ROA read on. Riding them into the unknown. The jeep crested a final hill, and the city sprawled before them like a glittering wound. Elena pressed her forehead against the COL glass, watching the lights blur past as Julian navigated through the back alleys and forgotten streets. He drove with a quiet desperation, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Lily was awake now, sitting in the back seat with her stuffed bunny clutched to her chest. She had stopped asking questions. She had stopped crying. She just watched the world slide by with a solemn stillness that broke Elena's heart. They pulled into a dilapidated Wari house on the edge of the industrial district. Julian killed the engine, and the silence rushed in, thick and suffocating. We're here, he said quietly. Elena looked around, her brow furrowing. Here, Julian, this place is abandoned. It's not abandoned, Julian said. He climbed out of the jeep, his movements stiff from the long drive. It's a safe house I built myself. No records, no trails. Not even Davis knows about it. Elena followed him, riding Lily in her ARMS. The Wari house was cavernous and dark, filled with the skeletal remains of old machinery. Julian led them through a maze of corridors, finally stopping at a nondescript door set into the wall. He pressed his thumb to a hidden scanner, and the door swung open, revealing a small, well-appointed apartment. It was sparsely furnished but clean, with a kitchen, a bathroom, and a single bed pushed against the wall. Elena set Lily down on the bed, pulling the covers over her. The little girl's eyes were already closing, her body surrendering to exhaustion. Julian stood in the doorway, watching them. His face was pale, his eyes hollowed. We need to talk, he said. Elena nodded, following him into the main room. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving Lily alone in the bedroom. What is it? Elena asked. Julian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of pure exhaustion. I've been thinking about what K.A. Rins said. About Volkov. About how he's always one step ahead. And I think she's right. He's been planning this for years. He knows my patterns, my habits, my weaknesses. He knows the people I see about. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. What are you saying? Julian looked at her, his eyes filled with pain. I'm saying that as long as I'm alive, you and Lily will never be safe. He'll keep coming. He'll keep using you to get to me. Elena stepped closer, her voice sharp. So what, you're going to run away, leave us? No. Julian shook his head. I'm going to end it. Tonight. Elena read at him, her heart racing. What do you mean? I mean I'm going to find Volkov, Julian said, his voice flat and cold. And I'm going to stop him. Permanently. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Julian, that's suicide. You said yourself he's been planning this for Yaris. He knows you. He'll be ready. Maybe, Julian said. But I'm not going in blind. I've been working on a plan. An old friend from the agency has been feeding me intel. Volkov is hiding in a private compound outside the city. He thinks he's untouchable. He's wrong. Elena grabbed his ARM, her grip fierce. You can't do this alone. You need backup. You need help. Julian placed his hand over hers, his touch gentle. I have help. Davis is assembling a team. But I need you to stay here, with Lily. You'll be safe. No one knows about this place. Safe. Elena laughed, a bitter, broken sound. There's no such thing as safe, Julian. You taught me that. Julian's expression softened. I know, but I'll come back. I promise. Elena shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Don't make promises you can't keep. Julian pulled her into his ARMS, holding her tight. I'll come back, he repeated. I love you, Elena. And I love Lily. That's why I have to do this. Elena sobbed into his chest, her fists pounding weakly against his back. I love you too, she whispered. But if you die, I'll never forgive you. Julian kissed the top of her head. I know. The night was cold and still when Julian left the Wari house. Elena watched from the doorway, her ARMS wrapped around herself, as his figure descended a red into the darkness. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. She sat on the edge of the bed, Lily's small hand in hers, waiting for the phone to ring that didn't ring. That hours passed, the silence stretching into an eternity. Elena read at the ceiling, her mind racing with 1,000 horrible possibilities. And then, just as the first light of dawn began to creep through the grimy windows, she heard that a soft knock at the door. Elena's heart leaped into her throat. She crept to the door, her hand trembling on the handle. Who is it? She whispered. It's me. Julian's voice. Tired, ragged, but unmistakably alive. Elena threw open the door, and there he stood, battered and bloody, his clothes torn, his face bruised. But he was standing. He was alive. You came back, she breathed. Julian smiled. A tired, genuine smile. I promised, didn't I? Elena threw her ARMS around him, sobbing with relief. He held her, his ARMS wrapped tight around her, his face buried in her hair. It's over, he said. Volkov is gone. The team took down the rest of his operation. It's over. Elena pulled back, looking into his eyes. What happened? Julian's smile faded, replaced by something darker. He almost got me. He was waiting, just like you said. But I had a backup plan. Someone on the inside. Elena frowned. Who? Julian looked past her, into the apartment. And there, standing in the doorway of the bedroom, was Karen. Elena gasped, stepping back. What is she doing here? Karen's expression was unreadable. I helped him, she said simply. I've been working with Davis for months. I fed him the intel on Volkov's operation. I wanted to make things right. Elena read at her, her mind reeling. But the photos, the messages, you made it seem like you were working against him. I needed you to believe that, Karen said. If Volkov suspected I was working with Julian, he would have killed me. And Sophie. Elena turned to Julian, her eyes wide. You knew she was helping you. Julian nodded slowly. I found out a few weeks ago. She reached out to Davis, offered to help. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to put you in danger. Elena felt a mix of emotions, betrayal, relief, confusion. I don't understand. Why would you help him, Karen? After everything, Karen's eyes filled with tears. Because I still love him. I've always loved him. And I realized that holding on to my anger was destroying me. It was destroying all of us. Elena looked between them, her heart aching. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know what to feel. Julian stepped forward, his voice soft. Karen is going to stay here for a while. She needs to reconcile with Sophie. And I need to be a better father. For both of them. Elena nodded slowly. I understand. Julian took her hand, his eyes sea-urching hers. But that doesn't change what I feel for you. What I feel for Lily. I want to be part of your life. If you'll let me. Elena smiled, tears streaming down her face. I think I can manage that. Lily read in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. She looked at Julian, at Karen, at Elena. Is the hero staying? She asked. Julian knelt down, his voice warm. The hero is staying. For good. Lily nodded seriously. Good. Because I need you to protect my mommy. And I need you to protect me. And I need you to teach me how to be brave. Julian laughed, a genuine, surprised laugh. I think you already know how to be brave, Lily. Lily smiled, a bright, innocent smile that lit up the room. And for the first time in a long time, Elena felt something she had almost forgotten. Peace. They sat together in the small APA mint, the four of them, watching the sun rise over the city. It was a new day, a new beginning, and they would face it together because that was what family did. They protected each other.